Hey guys, it is me, Jacqueline, and for today's video I'm combining two of my favorite things and putting them into this video, which is super exciting, and that is makeup and books, and I am doing the makeup book tag. If you haven't heard of the makeup book tag, there is a list of questions that are book related and also makeup related, and what you basically do is you answer the questions while you're putting on that makeup product, which is really exciting for me just because I love makeup so much. If you don't know, I actually want to be a makeup artist when I'm older, so this is going to be fun for me. I also get a lot of questions if I can do a tutorial and stuff like that on this channel, which I probably won't ever do. This is the closest that will come to it. If you don't know, I do have a second channel that is beauty related, and I post beauty related things on that channel. So if you're interested in that stuff, you can subscribe to that channel. But I thought this would be such a fun way to sort of combine the two things into one. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling. Let's just jump right on in to the video. So before I get up close and personal, I just wanted to show you guys I'm putting on my Minnie Mouse ears, which I'm so excited for because I never get to wear these, but because I'm doing my makeup and I want my hair out of my face, I thought this was the perfect opportunity to wear them. I'm so happy! Starting off with primer, I have one eye primer and two face primers. For the eye primer, I have the When Wild Photo Focus eyeshadow primer. This is one of my favorite eyeshadow primers I have ever used, regardless of the fact it is so inexpensive and it is a drugstore product. I think this is amazing. If you don't know, I have oily to combination skin, and I also have oily eyelids. If you have oily eyelids, you understand the struggle when it comes to sort of making sure you have a really nice primer. This one is fantastic. I highly recommend. Moving on to the face, yet again I have two, which is very extra, but I have oily to combination skin, so one primer does one thing and another primer does another thing. So this one is the Touch in Sol No Pore Blum Primer. I use this all over my face. It's sort of like a pore smoothing primer and also a moisturizer primer combined into one. I actually feel like this could work on a wider range of skin types. I love this one. Yet again, I put it all over my face, but because I do have such large pores, I use this one in the areas where I do have enlarged pores, which is like my T-zone area. This is the Catrice Cosmetics Prime and Fine Smoothing Refiner. It is like a little pot thing, and I put the smallest amount on my finger and I just sort of rub it into my skin. So let's get started on the primer, and let me read actually the first question. So question number one is, pick a book that left a lasting impression on you. That is so hard because sometimes when it comes to these questions, I feel like one of the more popular books come in my head, or a book I constantly talk about, but one that I actually just recently thought of, and I want to reread this series so bad because it's one of my favorite trilogies, is the Under the Never Sky trilogy by Veronica Rossi. It is such a fantastic trilogy. I actually posted a trilogy review for the entire trilogy on my channel years ago. I want to say like 3 years ago. I will leave it in the cards as well as down below if you haven't heard of that trilogy, because it is finished. It's been finished for a while, and I feel like it sort of ended and then no one really talked about it. It has some of my favorite characters in it, some of my favorite sort of fantastical dystopian elements. It's just so different. It sort of has a bunch of different subgenres put into one. Yet again, it's a trilogy, but I feel like the trilogy all together wraps up so beautifully, which is why I would say it's left such a lasting impression on me. Next, we are moving on to foundation. The foundation I'm using is the When Wild Photo Focus foundation. I love this foundation. It is one of my all-time favorite foundations. It is $6 at the drugstore. I believe also When Wild is now sold at Ulta, which is really nice. But I love When Wild. They're one of my favorite brands altogether. If you don't know, I only use cruelty-free makeup, by the way. But this foundation is beautiful. I'm just literally applying it straight to my skin. If you're wondering, I'm in the shade Golden Beige. I am a little bit tanner than this foundation, so we'll make it work. But FYI, I know this foundation is not the perfect color for me, but the undertone is the perfect shade for me because I am more warm, and this is medium warm. So the question that goes along with foundation, favorite first book in a series. Whenever I think about Under the Never Sky, like that trilogy, or one of those trilogies that I feel like is such a great all-around trilogy, I also think of the Winner's trilogy by Mary Rudkowski, and so I'm gonna go with the Winner's Curse. I love the Winner's trilogy. I also have a video review on that entire trilogy, and it is so fantastic. I think it is another one of those trilogies that I feel like is a little bit underrated. I think at first the Winner's Curse, which is the first book in the trilogy, was really popular, but then it sort of went off the deep end and no one really talked about it. So if you haven't picked up that trilogy, it's another sort of dystopian trilogy. It has a lot of political issues revolving around it. Such great, dynamic, rounded characters. So yet again, the foundation is definitely not my shade right now. I might have to pick up like a darker shade of this, but honestly, I'm just so lazy. I don't feel like doing that. Next though, we have concealer. And I have two concealers. I have one for underneath my eyes and one for any blemishes I have. So for underneath my eyes, I'm using the Physicians Formula Insta Ready concealer. This is exactly like MAC Pro Longwear if you're like me and are trying to go only cruelty free. This is a great alternative for that concealer. And then the other one I'm using, which is more for blemishes, but I'm also going to be putting this underneath my eyes because I have a feeling this is going to be too light for me, but we'll make it work. This is the Wet n Wild, yet again, Photo Focus Concealer in the shade light/medium beige. The question that goes along with concealer, pick some characters you wish didn't exist. That's so hard because there are some sort of like villains that honestly are awful people and have done awful things in book, and I'm like, I wish they didn't exist. But sometimes things go full circle and you see a switch up. Like if you have read the Mortal Instruments series, you might know of a certain villain I'm talking about, and I'm not saying what happened was excusable, but sort of his whole arc is interesting to say the least. So this is the thing, like I could say a villain and wish they didn't exist, but then some certain villains, I mean, sort of give the series like meaning, and it's interesting seeing what these certain villains do. So I don't really have a specific character that I'm like, I wish you didn't exist. If you guys have a particular character you wish didn't exist, please leave them down below. I might see one and be like, oh yeah, I wish they didn't exist either. It doesn't even have to be a villain. It could be really any character. It could be like a main protagonist that I think sucks, but nothing is really coming to mind right now, so maybe I should have actually looked at these questions before I filmed, but you know. I wanted to just get my natural first instinct reactions or answers to the questions. I didn't want to like plan it out before. That's no fun. Next I have powder. So I have two powders yet again. This is the Wet n Wild. I'm sorry, there's so much Wet n Wild. They're just actually one of my favorite brands. Wet n Wild Photo Focus Pressed Powder in the shade Neutral Beige. I'm gonna set my under eyes using this. And then for all over my face, I'm using the Blend Mineral Foundation in the shade 5. I'm really only using this because my face is so pale compared to the rest of my body, so I just wanna help that out a little bit because this is a little ridiculous. I believe I actually said this the last time I did this tag, is Clockwork Princess. I love Clockwork Princess. It's just such a good last book. I haven't actually reread that trilogy since I first read it, and that was like 4 years ago, which is insane because I feel like I always talk about it and I can remember that trilogy so distinctly even though I haven't read it in years, which is so interesting because there are so many other books that I've read so not long ago and I can't really remember them, but it's like some of your favorites that last for a while. Wow, that really actually helped darken up the complexion. I'm now using the Wet n Wild Photo Focus powder, but since I feel like, say last time, Clockwork Princess for this answer. I'm going to say another answer as well. Another one of my favorite conclusions to a series is the Lux series conclusion, which is Opposition. I really enjoy that series. I sort of want to do a series review on that series because it is one of my favorites. I just recently reread it and I was like, oh, I know why I love this series so much, because it's not a perfect series, but it just brings me so much joy. I'm gonna move on to the bronzer question, which is actually a question I made up. There was no bronzer question or highlight in the original tag, and I used both of those makeup products, so I decided to add that to this question. And maybe there is on someone else's video, but when I looked up the original one, I didn't see it as a part of it. So bronzer, I'm going to be using the Physicians Formula, and I almost just slapped it on my face, Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This is in the shade Bronzer. The bronzer question that I made up was, choose a book that left you emotionally touched, because if you don't know, bronzer is supposed to look as though you've been touched by the sun, kissed by the sun, whatever sort of phrase you want to use. One of my favorite books, and one book that I actually read pretty recently, and I didn't really like read it, but I read a quote by it and it just brought back all the memories of me reading that book, was The Sea of Tranquility. That's by KATJA MILLAY. What is her last name? KATJA MILLAY? I forget the author's last name, but The Sea of Tranquility is such a fantastic book. And I feel as though it got a lot of hype when it was first released, and now no one really talks about it anymore. If you haven't read it, it's a contemporary book, but the writing is stunning. The characters are just so real and vivid and come off the page, and you just can't help but follow along the story and just really feel for the characters. It's fantastic. Some of my favorite writing ever is in that book. I just started to put on my blush without introducing it, but the next one we're doing is blush, and the blush I'm using is Milani's Luminoso, which is such a beautiful, flattering shade. It's like this peachy corally color with such a beautiful sheen to it. I love it. I love blushes that are more muted. I don't really like something that's very wham bam in your face. The question that goes along with blush is, pick a book with a cringe-worthy romance. I just finished Dating You, Hating You, and I didn't hate that book, but I have to say sometimes the romance for me was just a little on the cringe side. Next I have highlight, and the highlight I'm using is the Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighter in the shade Precious Petals. One of my favorite highlighters. I think this formula is amazing, and the original tag did not have a highlight question, so I did make up one, and the question I made up was highlight or shine some light onto one of your favorite authors. So one of my favorite authors that I feel as though I've been pushing her for like months now is Amy Harmon. I have read 3 of her books, and I would definitely recommend the 2 out of the 3 I've read. I do like the 3rd one I read, but I feel like the other 2 I loved way more. And the first 2 that I read were Making Faces and The Law of Moses. I also read A Different Blue, which yet again I did enjoy that story, but I felt the other 2 books I read previously I loved a little bit more. I know that she has paranormal books out, and she also has a historical fiction novel out. I have one of her paranormal books, and I have the historical fiction in my possession. I haven't read those 2, but yet again, her characters are beautiful. The writing is stunning, and I feel like her stories just really hold your attention, and she takes you on such an amazing ride with her books. So I would definitely recommend checking out Amy Harmon if you haven't already. Also, look at this highlight. It's crazy. I'm gonna move on to my eyebrows now, which honestly are such a pain in the ass for me because I do have naturally like thicker brows, but I still have to fill them in because one of my brows is more mischievous than the other. So the 2 products I'm using are yet again from Wet n Wild. I swear I genuinely love Wet n Wild, and this isn't me like shoving Wet n Wild down your throat. I just use a lot of Wet n Wild products. So I'm using the Ultimate Brow Mascara from Wet n Wild in the shade Nothing But Brunette, and I'm also using the Ultimate Brow Kit. So the question that goes along with brows is pick a book you think everyone should read. Ooh, that's hard. That's really hard. One book I think everyone should read. Well, besides the many ones I have already sort of recommended in this video, I dropped my eyebrow brush if you were wondering what I'm doing. Definitely one of my favorite books I've read this year is A Crown of Wishes by Roshani Chokshi. It is the companion novel to her debut novel that came out last year, which is A Star-Touched Queen. It's beautiful. I love The Star-Touched Queen. If you've been following me for a while, you know how much I raved about that book. So when I heard that she was coming out with a companion novel, I was freaking out because I just knew it was going to be everything I wanted and more. And what I really loved even more about A Crown of Wishes compared to The Star-Touched Queen is The Star-Touched Queen was her debut novel. So she got so much feedback from A Star-Touched Queen, and when she wrote A Crown of Wishes, she really took the time and took everyone's sort of feedback to work on her writing. And one of my favorite things when it comes to reading and following different authors and stuff like that and seeing how much they grow throughout the years. One of my favorite authors, I've already mentioned her in this video, is Cassandra Clare. I've been following her for so long. I've read pretty much all of her books, and you can really see how she grows and changes throughout the years and throughout her books. And I can say that Roshani Chokshi has definitely changed from A Star-Touched Queen to A Crown of Wishes for the better. She's coming out with another book. I don't believe it's this year. I think it's next year she's coming out with another book, and I cannot wait to read it because I have a feeling she will become one of my all-time favorite authors. I mean, she sort of already is, but I've only read these two books, so I definitely want to see her change it up with a different sort of setting and a world and characters and stuff like that. So I cannot wait. I will definitely be following Roshani Chokshi as she continues to write more and more books. Next we have eyeshadow, and I am going to be answering the question before I do my makeup because I'm going to be zooming in and it's going to be a little bit harder for me to show off exactly what I'm talking about. So the question for eyeshadow is, pick a book with your favorite colors on the cover. So my favorite color is aquamarine, but to me more primary, I'm going to say blue. So one of my favorite sort of blued colored cover is this one, and this is The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. I think this color is so unique. I haven't really seen anything like this for a book, and it's just so stunning to me. Definitely eye-catching. I love this color. So for eyeshadow, I'm going to be mostly dipping into the Modern Renaissance palette by Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is my all-time favorite palette. As you can see, we've been through some difficult times together. I literally have used and abused this palette to death. So first things first is I'm going to take this shade, which is called Golden Ochre, and I'm going to put this just in my crease area. I'm also using the brush that comes with the palette also. I was going to use the Subculture palette as well, but I know a lot of people have some negative things to say about the Subculture palette. I personally really enjoy it. I have it right here. But you know, I'm definitely in the minority when I say that. I don't feel like the palette should have been released just yet. I feel as though they should have really corrected the problems before they released it, but you know, there's only so much I can do. I'm right now taking Raw Sienna, and I'm just placing that in the exact same spot. I'm now going to take the shade Primavera, and I'm just going to put this all over my lid. I'm not using any setting spray or anything. I'm just literally taking the brush, applying it straight to the lid. Such a beautiful gold color. And then I'm going to take this shade, which is called Burnt Orange, on this J127 Precision brush, which is more of a tapered blending brush, and I'm going to put that right here because I just want to add a little bit more of a warm tone color in the crease area. And I'm also going to be putting this on my lower lash line as well with the same brush. Just sort of smudge it underneath here. Next we have eyeliner, and I don't actually wear eyeliner on the regular basis. I more than will just take shadow and use that as liner. So I'm taking the same palette and I'm going to be using the shade Cypress Umber. But the question that goes along with eyeliner is pick a dark and mysterious book. So one that comes to mind is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. That was a book that I read a couple months ago, and it's definitely very mysterious and dark in some parts. I really enjoyed that book. I know some people thought it was a little bit overhyped, but I'm really excited to see what else Stephanie Garber comes out with. That was her debut novel, and I thought it was such a good one at that. Next, I have mascara. So the mascara I am using is the Jordana Best Lash Extreme Volumizing Mascara, and I have a random eyelash curler to go along with it. The question that goes along with mascara is pick a long book. One that I still have not read, and I know I will be reading it soon. I probably will be reading it like sometime this week, is Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. I will have a review soon, I promise. It will probably be in my apartment though when I'm doing that review. But I'm so intimidated by it. I know I'm going to love the book, obviously, but I know once I read it, I'm not going to stop thinking about it, and I'm just way too excited for it, and I know it's going to be so long until I get the third book in that series. So yes, I would say that is definitely a long book. I think it's like 700 pages, so I can't wait to read it. But now I'm going to focus and put on my mascara. Final question we have is the lips. So I have two products. First is the lip liner I will be using, which is ColourPop's Grunge. As you can see, I love this so much. I've used so much of it. And then the lipstick I'm using is Millay's 69 Matte Beauty. And I love Millay's matte lipstick formula. It is literally my all-time favorite lipstick formula. Highly recommend. The question that goes along with this one is your favorite book kiss, which is so hard. Oh my god, that's so hard. I don't know. My favorite book kiss? I feel as though I have some favorites like throughout different series, but I don't know if I have like an ultimate all-time favorite book kiss. Ugh, this lipstick. I love it. It smells like vanilla. It's so pretty. So this is the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yet again, so many things will be linked and left in the description box. So if you have any questions regarding other things, please leave them down below. Also, let me know what you thought of the video in general, and if you have any other video requests. Don't forget to thumbs up this video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!